Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. It was supposed to be a quiet night. No drama.
No surprises.
Just me, a mug of tea, and the soft comfort of scrolling through Instagram while half watching a documentary I wouldn't remember in the morning. Then I saw it. I almost scrolled past it. The photo looked like every other curated couple shot. A cozy filter, dim restaurant lighting, a soft glow on two hands held across a white tablecloth. But then my thumb froze. Because one of those hands was his. I knew that vein on the back of his hand like the lines on my own palm. The way his pinky sat slightly lower than the rest. The skin, a little rough at the knuckle, the mark from where he burned himself making pasta years ago. It was him. And next to it, her hand. Perfectly manicured. Oval nails, pale pink polish. A delicate diamond ring, glinting like a secret just exposed to the light. The caption. He said yes, ring sparkles. She tagged no one. But she didn't have to. Because the background, that same candlelit table at Marlowe's, the restaurant we used to go to for our anniversaries, told me everything I needed to know. I clicked her profile. Public. Rows and rows of filtered selfies, travel shots, #work-life posts. And there it was again, the ring. The hand. Multiple angles. One video showing it sparkling under a chandelier. The comments poured in. OMG, congrats. Cutest couple ever. Finally. I felt my fingers go cold. I checked the time. 9:17 p.m. He said he was working late. Again. Quarter-end reports. Client dinners. He hadn't answered my last text. Don't wait up. So I didn't. I stared at the screen. At his hand holding hers. And my ring, the one I picked. The one I saved for. The one I slipped on his finger while promising to choose him every day, even when it got hard. And now it was part of someone else's celebration post. I could have lost it right then. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just typed. 4 words. You make a great pair.
No puntuación. No hashtags. No emojis.
I hit send. And for a second the world stood still. I don't remember the rest of that night. I just remember watching the screen, watching people like it, watching new comments pop up. Wait. Isn't he married? Girl. And just like that, my quiet humiliation turned into a public reckoning. He still hadn't messaged me. But I knew he'd seen it. He had to. Because by morning my comment had 12,000 likes. And the post? Deleted. Looking back, the signs weren't subtle. They were scattered everywhere. Like loose threads I could have pulled if I hadn't been so afraid of what would unravel. It started with the shirts. New ones. Slimmer fits. Sharper collars. I asked if he'd gone shopping. He said, just needed a refresh. Then came the gym. He'd never been the workout type. Suddenly he was out by 6 a.m., coming home sweaty, energized, talking about mental clarity and core strength. But the gym bag always smelled like expensive cologne. And sometimes, not like him. I asked once casually, do you shower there? He smiled and said, saves time. The late nights followed. Then the business trips. Then the small lies with too many details. That's the trick with liars. They talk too much when they should be vague, and they go quiet when they should be specific. I'd text at 8 p.m., no reply. I'd call at 10 straight to voicemail. He'd walk in past midnight, coat still buttoned, breath minty, eyes too alert. He'd say things like, sorry it was chaos tonight. Or you wouldn't believe the traffic. While tossing his phone face down on the table. But I stopped asking. Because I already knew how it would feel to hear a truth I wasn't ready for. So instead, I learned to sit beside him and pretend I couldn't smell someone else's perfume on his collar. I learned how to serve dinner without asking who he had already eaten with. I learned to make peace with a man who had quietly stepped out of our marriage. Not with a bang, but with little exits scattered like breadcrumbs. And then there was her. His secretary. I'd met her once. A company Christmas party 2 years ago. She wore a red dress and heels too high for comfort. Her laugh was loud, practiced. The way she clung to her wine glass told me she liked being watched. She greeted me like she had practiced it in front of a mirror. You're his wife. He talks about you all the time. I remember thinking her smile didn't reach her eyes. I also remember how he barely looked at me that night. After that, her name started showing up more. Emily scheduled it. Emily's got that covered. Emily's really stepping up lately. He said she was efficient. He said she was young and hungry for growth. He didn't say he was feeding her behind my back. The week before the post, he forgot our dinner reservation. Our anniversary. 8 years. I waited 2 hours at the restaurant, trying not to check my phone every 5 minutes. When I finally called, he said he was stuck in a meeting. He said he'd make it up to me. I believed him. I ordered dessert to go and cried in the car, convincing myself it was just a rough patch. But there's a moment, always a moment, when your gut stops whispering and starts screaming. Mine came 3 nights before the post, when I reached for his jacket to hang it and a receipt slipped from the pocket. 2 glasses of champagne. A shared dessert. Marlowe's. My favorite. But not with me. I remember staring at that slip of paper like it was a confession letter. Small. Innocent looking. But so loud. I didn't say anything. I folded it. Tucked it into the back of my journal. Right next to the napkin he once scribbled a love note on years ago. One was sweet. The other was the truth. That weekend he said he had a team-building retreat out of town. He packed light. Didn't kiss me goodbye. I stood at the door, waving to a man who had already left me long before he picked up his keys. And then 3 days later I saw the post. And I didn't need to ask any more questions. By morning my comment had a life of its own. It wasn't just a reply anymore. It was a headline. Screenshots floated across Twitter, TikTok, Reddit threads. Wife claps back at cheating husband with a single comment. My name wasn't tagged, but everyone knew. Everyone who needed to. By noon people were texting me. Some were close friends, checking in with awkward compassion. Others were people I hadn't spoken to in years. Old coworkers, distant cousins, that one girl from college who always competed with me but now wrote, "Proud of you, sis." I even got a message from someone who didn't say a word. Just sent the screenshot.
No caption.
I turned my phone over and walked away. But the notifications kept lighting up the screen like a strobe, likes, reposts, tags. Someone had made a meme out of it. Another person had put dramatic music behind it on TikTok. One user even stitched it into a "How to Spot a Cheating Man" video. My quiet moment of heartbreak had become public property. But he hadn't called. Not once. And neither had she. Not to explain. Not to deny. Not to apologize. Just silence. That told me everything I needed to know. Still, I kept checking the post. Even after she deleted it. Even after the comment disappeared, I couldn't stop refreshing her page. I don't know what I was looking for, shame maybe? Or cowardice? Or just some sign that she'd felt what I felt when I realized my marriage had become a punchline. But her profile went private. He didn't come home that night. I didn't bother calling. I'd already seen enough to know where he was, or at least who he was with. That evening I made dinner for myself. Set the table for one. Lit a candle just to remind myself I could still create peace in a house full of betrayal. I sipped wine while the dog curled up at my feet, and the world outside kept buzzing with my heartbreak. By 10 p.m. I had over 4,000 new followers. By midnight, I had 3 different DMs from reporters asking for comment. I didn't reply to any of them, because it was never about revenge. Not really. It was about the moment I saw him for who he was, and refused to look away. I opened my laptop and scrolled to our wedding photos. Clicked through each one. I studied his smile in every frame. The way he looked at me like I was everything. Like there was no one else. But now I know he didn't look at me that way. He looked at who he needed me to be. And when I stopped fitting that image, when I got too tired, too boring, too domestic, he looked elsewhere. But I didn't disappear. He thought he could erase me quietly. Instead, I signed my name under his affair and pinned it where the world could see. I didn't go looking for revenge. Not at first. What I wanted was clarity. Proof. Something colder than feelings, more solid than suspicion. I wanted to hold the truth in my hands and say, "Here. This is what you did to me." So I hired someone. A man named Leo. Quiet. Older. The kind of presence you wouldn't notice in a crowded room, which made him perfect. "I don't want drama," I told him. He nodded. Most people say that. At first. But I meant it. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want yelling or screaming or broken dishes. I didn't want to be that woman. Frantic, desperate, begging someone who already left her to come back and explain why. I just wanted the truth. Clean. Untouched. Black and white. Leo worked fast. 3 days later I had a folder. I didn't open it at first. Just placed it on the kitchen counter next to the fruit bowl. Walked past it every time I poured coffee or rinsed a glass. Like it was radioactive. Like touching it would make everything too real. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat alone at the table. I opened the folder. Inside, a stack of photos, screenshots, bank statements, hotel receipts. It wasn't just one mistake. It was months of planning. A bracelet purchase from the same boutique he'd taken me to on our 3rd anniversary. Except this one wasn't for me. A weekend at a cabin we'd once talked about renting. He took her instead. Dinner charges to our joint account for meals I never ate. In one photo, they stood outside a hotel, her hand resting on his chest like they belonged together. His face tilted toward her mid-laugh. Relaxed. At ease. I looked at that photo for a long time. Then I went to the bathroom. Opened my makeup drawer. Found a tube of lipstick I hadn't worn in months. Deep red. Bold. Not for errands or school events or late nights watching Netflix on the couch, but for the version of me that used to turn heads. I put it on, just to see if I still recognized myself. And I did. Not the broken wife. Not the abandoned partner. Not the woman whose husband used her trust like a doormat. Someone else. Someone quieter. Sharper. Clearer. I leaned close to the mirror and whispered, "You're not the fool here." The next morning I returned to Leo with a check and a thank you. He handed me one final envelope. "Just in case," he said. I didn't ask what was inside. I didn't need to. I had everything I needed now: dates, evidence, receipts, and a calmness I hadn't felt in months. The kind of calm that doesn't come from forgiveness. The kind that comes from knowing you're done pretending. Marlowe's. The same restaurant from the Instagram post. The same soft lighting, the same polished marble tables, the same hushed atmosphere that always made it feel a little too elegant to be touched by real life. It used to be our place. Before it was theirs. He loved the filet. Rare. With that ridiculous bone marrow butter he'd never shut up about. Said it was decadent. Like he was reviewing for a food blog instead of just being a man with expensive taste and no loyalty. I booked a table for 2. Friday night. Peak time. His favorite hour. But I didn't go alone. I brought my friend Tessa, old friend, media connections, a voice as sharp as her cheekbones. She worked in PR but moonlighted in karma. The kind of person you call when you need the world to see what someone tried to bury. She didn't ask why we were going to Marlowe's. She already knew. She just showed up in a black suit and said, "He's going to wish you screamed instead." We were seated one table over from our usual booth, the one I now knew he'd shared with her. I ordered his favorite wine. Tessa ordered oysters and a dessert before the entree. And while we waited for the appetizers, I opened my purse and pulled out a small envelope. Inside, one photo. The photo Leo had taken. The one of him and her, standing together, her hand on his chest, the bracelet glinting in the sun like proof. I placed it between the salt and pepper shakers. Tessa didn't even blink. She took a sip of her drink and said, "What's the plan?" I smiled. "Do you still know anyone at the Post?" She grinned. 3 editors and a gossip columnist. I pushed the envelope toward her. "Let's make sure they know exactly who's sleeping with their secretary." She looked at the photo, nodding slowly. "You're not going to confront him?" I shook my head. "Not yet. He thinks I'll beg. That's what men like him want. A woman so desperate to save face, she's willing to lose her dignity." I reached for my glass. I'd rather lose the man. The filet arrived. I didn't touch it. Just stared at it. Letting the smell of butter and red meat remind me of every anniversary toast I made to someone who was already looking over my shoulder. Tessa raised her glass. "To women who don't leave quietly." Clinked it. "To men who never see us coming." He came home on a Sunday. Late. As usual. Loafers clicking softly on the hardwood. Keys tossed carelessly in the bowl by the door like he hadn't just blown a hole through our life and walked away whistling. He didn't even flinch when he saw the lights were on. Didn't notice the absence of music or the eerie stillness in the air. I was sitting at the kitchen table. Waiting. Not slouched. Not shaking. Not crying. Just sitting, spine straight, face calm, hands folded on the table like I was ready for a business meeting. He blinked when he saw me. "Didn't expect you to be up," he said. I smiled. "Bet." He walked in slowly, cautiously now. "Look, I know things have been tense. I was gonna talk to you tonight." "Really?" I slid the folder across the table before he could sit. It landed in front of him with a quiet, perfect thud. He stared at it. "What's this?" "You already know." He opened it. One glance. Then silence. I watched his face shift, recognition, then guilt, then something colder. Something defensive. He set the photos down like they were an inconvenience, like someone else had done this to him. "This is private," he muttered. "So is marriage," I said. "But you brought yours to Instagram." He looked up sharply. That wasn't what it looked like. I leaned back. It looked like my husband's hand in my husband's ring, holding another woman's fingers over dessert at the restaurant we used to call ours. He didn't deny it. Didn't need to. The silence between us had always told more truth than his mouth ever did. He started the next part like they always do. "I never meant to hurt you." A classic. I almost laughed. Almost. "Of course not," I said. "You meant to lie. You meant to cheat. You meant to hide. The hurt was just the part you didn't care enough to avoid." He tried again. "It wasn't serious." "Don't," I said, holding up one finger. "Don't insult me by pretending this was a lapse in judgment. It was a routine. I have receipts." His jaw clenched. "You went through my stuff?" "No," I said. "Your mistress put it online. I just followed the trail." He ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know what you want me to say." "You don't have to say anything," I replied. "This isn't a negotiation. I already spoke to my attorney. You'll be served this week." That got his attention. "You're divorcing me?" "I'm freeing myself," I corrected. He stared at me like he didn't recognize who I was anymore. Good. That meant I had finally become someone he couldn't manipulate. "You don't have to do this," he said, softer now, leaning forward. "We can work through this." I made a mistake. "No," I said. "You made choices. Repeated ones. While looking me in the eyes." He opened his mouth again. I stood up. And before I left the room, I looked back and gave him the only closure he'd get from me. "You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry I saw it." Then I walked upstairs. And locked the door behind me. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. The unraveling came in pieces, quiet, surgical, with no shouting and no slammed doors. Just signatures, subpoenas, and a silence that lingered louder than anything he had the courage to say. He moved into a hotel 3 days after the confrontation. Said he needed space to think. As if the problem were confusion, not consequence. He left behind his watch, his charger, 2 shirts, and a marriage. I didn't pack them for him. I donated the shirts. Kept the charger. A week later, I filed the HR complaint. Not out of spite, but because the receipts were real, and the office deserved to know that their senior executive was sleeping with his subordinate, expensing dinners labeled client development, that were actually candlelit rendezvous with a woman who couldn't spell confidentiality. The firm launched an internal review. I didn't need to show up. The folder did the talking. I heard through a mutual acquaintance, one of the few who hadn't quietly picked a side, that his email was deactivated by Thursday. By Friday, the secretary was placed on leave. By Monday, they were both no longer affiliated with the company. I didn't gloat. I just watered my plants and opened my windows a little wider. The house breathed differently without him in it. My lawyer was efficient. She reviewed the prenup, gathered documentation, ran the numbers. Turns out betrayal has a paper trail. I got the house, the car, my savings untouched. He tried to negotiate, said he could offer more support if we kept things quiet. I told her to decline. There was no quiet anymore. He tried to reach out once. Not through lawyers, through text. It was short. "I miss you. I messed up." I stared at it for a moment, not because I felt anything, but because of how predictable it was.
No accountability. No ownership.
Just the word miss tossed into the air like it could pull me back to where I used to be. I didn't reply. The next week, someone from a media blog reached out. Said they'd traced the story. Asked if I wanted to comment. I said no. Because the world already knew enough. It was never about being viral. It was about being done. I went back to my life, my real life. The one I had to rebuild from beneath his lies. The one I'd nearly lost trying to keep something broken from falling apart in front of everyone else. But now, for the first time in years, I wasn't pretending. He kept calling. I kept living. That's how the collapse works. Not always with a bang. Sometimes just with a door that never opens again. They called me a queen in the comments. Icon behavior. She ate that. Wife of the year. Thousands of strangers cheering for a woman they didn't know. Raising digital glasses to a one-line comment that burned down a lie in 4 words. You make a great pair. It became a slogan. Some even printed it on shirts. I was flooded with DMs from women sharing their stories. Husbands, boyfriends, fiancés who had done the same or worse. Some cried. Some asked for advice. Some just said, "Thank you. You helped me leave." It should have made me feel powerful. And in a way it did. But when the phone screen dimmed and the apartment went quiet, I was still alone with my own silence. The kind of silence that doesn't echo, only presses. People thought I was celebrating. But I was grieving. Not for him. For me. For the version of myself that bent so far just to be loved, she forgot what it felt like to stand. I kept getting invited to podcasts, panels, commentaries. They wanted the strong woman who went viral, the face of modern revenge. But I didn't want to perform my pain. I wanted to understand it. So I started therapy. I told the counselor I didn't cry when it ended. Not when I found the photos, not when I saw the post, not even when he walked out. She said, "That's because you started mourning long before it collapsed." She was right. The real loss happened in the waiting. The begging for eye contact. The wondering if it was you. The shrinking to fit into someone's fading attention span. I was already grieving when I smiled through his lies and told myself it was just a phase. Already grieving when I stared at my reflection and didn't recognize the woman who used to speak her mind. Already grieving when I sat across from a man who forgot how to ask how I was doing. The comment was just the funeral. The mourning had started long before. So I pulled away from the noise. Stopped reading the messages. Turned off the mentions. Stopped trying to be an internet icon when all I really wanted was a real identity again. I bought fresh flowers every Sunday. Cooked dinner for myself without making enough for 2. Put my favorite songs back into rotation, the ones I used to turn off because they reminded me of when he still loved me. It was quiet. But not empty. Not anymore. Healing didn't come in applause. It came in one small, ordinary moment at a time. A slow stitching of soul.
No filter. No headline.
Just breath. It wasn't planned. I was walking past a small jewelry store on a Tuesday afternoon. The kind you miss unless the sun hits the glass just right. Caught my eye like something familiar but new. I stopped. Stared at the display. My reflection hovered in the glass, caught between silver and gold. And there it was. Simple. Minimal. A delicate gold band with a tiny black stone in the center. Not flashy. Not symbolic. Not dripping in diamonds or declarations. Just elegant. And quiet. I walked in. The woman behind the counter smiled like she already knew I wasn't there to browse. Looking for anything specific? No, I said. Then paused. Actually, yes. She waited. A ring. But not for anyone else. She didn't flinch. Just nodded. I tried it on. The gold felt warm, smooth, light. Like it didn't ask for anything. It didn't promise forever. It didn't symbolize vows broken or secrets buried. Just fit. And I realized in that moment I wanted something that fit me now. Not who I was when I was married. Not who I was when I was hurt. But the woman who walked out of it all still standing. I bought it.
No engraving. No ceremony.
Just a plain white box in a small bag. And a quiet walk home under soft light. That night I slid it onto my middle finger. Not as a statement. Not as a rebellion. Just a reminder. A reminder that I am still here. Still mine. Still whole. I didn't need anyone's permission to reclaim my space. To sit alone at a table and order dessert first. To laugh at my own jokes. To sleep in the middle of the bed. To wear red lipstick on a Monday just because I liked how it made me feel. This ring wasn't revenge. It wasn't survival. It was a symbol of something rarer than either. Peace. And it didn't cost me tears or trust, or a decade of trying to hold someone else together. It only cost me everything I used to be. And it gave me back the one thing I never thought I'd find again. Myself. It had been months. Seasons had turned without him. Leaves changed, snow fell, days got longer. I could measure time now by how many mornings passed without checking for his name, how many nights I spent not wondering where he was. I no longer flinched when someone asked if I was married. I just said, not anymore. And I said it like a fact, not a wound. That morning I was scrolling again. Not because I was looking for anything, just passing time with my coffee in silence. The algorithm did its thing. And there it was. Her profile. Public again. I clicked. Curiosity, not pain. No more ring photos. No, he said yes. No candlelit tables or overfiltered couple selfies. Just soft quotes now. Reposts about healing. A story about starting over. He wasn't in any of them. I scrolled back to that post. The one that started everything. The one with the matching rings. It was still there. Still live. Still captioned with stars and a heart. And right beneath it my comment. You make a great pair. Still pinned. Still liked. Thousands of times. I stared at it for a while. Not with anger. Not with bitterness. Just reflection. Because once that sentence was the only power I had. The only tool I could use to say, I see you. I know what you did. And I won't beg. Now it was just a sentence on a screen. And I was no longer the woman who typed it from a couch lit by betrayal. I was someone else now. Someone who didn't need public validation to feel real. Someone who could look at a post that once shattered her and think, you did make a great pair. A great pair of liars. A great pair of cautionary tales. A great pair of lessons I didn't ask for but survived anyway. I locked my phone, set it down, and opened the window, because outside the light was changing again. And this time it wasn't shining on them. It was shining on me.